Hello and welcome back. Dr. Rees again with a brief presentation focusing on one of the chapters in our recently published book, Our Shared Illusions. What neuroscience can tell us about our brain, our mind, the planet, and the future. So, there's a lot going on, of course, these days. Politics play a major role, concerns about the economy, and all kinds of other things. What has gone completely unnoticed, as far as I can tell, is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the first concentration camps in Poland by the Red Army. Simon Sharma, the British historian, has produced a very moving YouTube video, which you can find in the show notes, telling his experience of going for the first time to Auschwitz. Simon is Jewish himself, and you can tell from viewing the video that it had cost him a great deal of distress and emotional disturbance in undertaking this journey. There are a couple of things in this video I'd like to point out to you. One is that before the industrial scale extermination of Jews in Poland began, the Nazi Party and Hitler did some experiments to test to what extent the local population might either be against or helpful with the extermination of their Jewish friends and neighbors. And the answer is that they were very supportive of these efforts. He points to experiences in Lithuania early in the war, and then later on, the collaboration of many people in the Netherlands to flush out Jewish friends and colleagues and family members to be transported by train to Auschwitz. Most famously, of course, Anne Frank is a victim of these exterminations. So this has gone unnoticed in the mainstream media, other than this beautiful and moving video by Simon Sharma on YouTube. It resonates, though, with one of the chapters in our book, in which we try to establish what kind of people we are, what kind of predictions we can make that when the chips are down, when climate catastrophes hit, when mass migrations occur, what kinds of reactions can we anticipate that we as a Homo sapiens community will likely to be engaging in? In reflecting on this, it occurs to me that the only species on planet Earth that has engaged repeatedly in genocide is us, Homo sapiens. Chimpanzees will fight. They will monitor the boundaries of their troop. They will attack selected other males trying to intrude into their system. Other animals will fight as well, but there may be one or two or three victims until the passions subside and the normal proceedings are back established. Homo sapiens, supposed to be the moral species, endowed with a sense of morality, with a religious impulse, with rationality, is the only species on this planet who has ever engaged repeatedly from earliest times in genocide. So I referenced the Holocaust, the Shoah, the extermination of Jews under Hitler's regime. It's been proposed that perhaps civilization itself and civilization and its discontents, in the famous phrase of Sigmund Freud, might create pressures in societies which are being discharged in the massive perpetration of murder and mayhem. This does not seem to be accurate because recent technologies have allowed us to go way back into the past and look at the DNA in bones dating back to tens of thousands of years into the past to be extracted and sequenced, and allowing us to detect certain specific types of sequences that can be attributed to certain populations. When you do this, you can detect a massive migration which began maybe 3,000 to 4,000 or 5,000 years ago in an area now probably encompassing some of Ukraine, for example, the so-called Yamnaya. The Yamnaya are famous for burial mounds that are found all over the steppes, in which they buried male warriors with their valuable swords and other valuables, clearly indicating that warrior-type behavior was highly valued by the Yamnaya. If you speak one of the modern languages, such as English, German, Portuguese, Spanish, Russian, any European language, you are in some way descendant, at least language-wise, from the Yamnaya. They brought with them the Proto-Indo-German language, branches of which we have all inherited. So the stamp of the Yamnaya on our culture and our history is a very profound one. And it's only been in the last 10 or 20 years that you have been able to map their migration and their impact onto their receiving societies by molecular biology and specifically gene sequencing. So here's what happened. At a certain period of time, 1,500 years or more prior to the Common Era, the Yamnaya migrated both east and west and arrived in Europe. How do we know? Well, we know from two findings. One is archaeology. The type of pottery that was used by the indigenous inhabitants and the new arrivals differs significantly. So the change in pottery style can be correlated with the invasion of a new culture into Europe. More importantly, though, what happened upon the arrival of the Yamnaya in Europe is this. Within a short period of time, maybe only a few hundred years, the Y chromosomes in the male population totally switched from that type present before the invasion of the Yamnaya and the Yamnaya type of Y chromosome sequence. How do we know this? Well, on each chromosome, a piece of DNA, there are certain blinking lights, so to speak, which indicate what's called a haplotype, a certain sequence specifically assigned to this region of the chromosome. And these little blinking lights change from population to population. With the arrival of the Yamnaya, the indigenous blinking lights vanished totally, or almost totally, and were substituted by sequences on the Y chromosome characteristic of the Yamnaya invading the European area. What does this mean? It means that the boys and men disappeared from the indigenous population. They were no longer able to transmit their Y chromosomes to their sons. Y chromosomes, of course, occur in males only. We have XY, and each Y chromosome is inherited only from our father and grandfather, and so on and so forth. So this then was to suggest, along with archaeological findings indicating mass warfare, mass graves, terrific leveling of the local culture, that the Yamnaya essentially eliminated the local males by genocide. Females were kept as slaves, sex slaves, workers in the household, etc. So that's the first major genocide that we can document by DNA analysis, dating back well before large-scale settled societies were established, indicating that the frustration of civilization, of house settlements, of structures in the society cannot be to blame, because the Yamnaya were pastoralists. They were good with horses. They may have invented a war machine, on wheels. They were extremely efficient as warriors. So there you have it. It's likely that the migration of the Yamnaya may have been triggered by changes in the climate at that time. We have now become very good at mapping climate change way into the past, tens of thousands of years ago. So it's likely that climate change, with the expansion of this nomadic population, generated our first incontrovertible evidence for genocide in Europe, basically eliminating the totality of the male population. Now, it doesn't get any better. We are proud to be inheritors of a culture originating to a large extent in ancient Greece. In the book, we document that the ancient Greeks were ruthless, genocidal folks that when they felt that proper respect wasn't paid to the dominating power, Athens at the time, entire island populations were slaughtered and eliminated, this being documented in a written history of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides, a Greek historian, probably the first major historian in the written world. So that is the evidence. Reflect on this and imagine major catastrophic climate changes occurring now, prompting migrations of major populations, let's say from south to north. How will we receive them? How will we relate to them? The prognosis may not be good. Of course, I can't do justice to the more complex analyses that we do in our book, so please check it out. It's available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle. Our Shared Illusions. The electronic copy costs you as much as 2 specialty cups of coffee from Starbucks. Thank you for paying attention, and we'll see you soon again with a brief chapter on our new book. Thanks.